Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of Jay Saying Stuff during lockdown. Today, I'm live from my daughter's bedroom as I continue trying to find a great place to create content from in our very constricted space that we have, our 2-bed flat in lockdown, where obviously, as you can imagine, having a 2-year-old, every time she even hears my voice, she wants to come running in. But I've managed to distract her with one of her favourite cartoons, Bing, for parents who know. And while she is having her Bing time, I thought I would have the chance to have my video time. Also as well, would like to welcome Violet here. Violet Hill is actually her full name, but this is one of our plants in the house, but particularly my daughter's plant, which she likes for not only the colours but also because there are, I'm not sure if you can see, but very fine little hairs, which kind of make it cute in a monstrous way, well, for me anyway, but my daughter loves it, so great. Talking of children, and my daughter in particularly, I think I want to just kind of touch on the subject of children a little bit this episode, because I was lucky enough to be a guest this week on one of my good friends' broadcast show, Nat Rich. I'll put the link to her and her show below in the comments for this episode, because she's also growing her YouTube and kind of showing up for herself, for everybody during this lockdown period and as a 2021 habit and beyond. And hopefully Nat and I will be making more content as she actually gravitates from YouTube to her own Roku channel to begin with, and then who knows where it goes from there. However, this week she invited me onto her show for an episode called Who's Your Daddy, where we were talking about the relationship between parent and child, particularly father and daughter, but then also as well about my own life as a child and my relationship with my parents and where all these things kind of fit together in the generational cycle. Now, what kind of came up from the conversation, and again, I will also share the link to that episode if anybody wants to check it out and see some of the things that I said, that Nat said, and also the other guest, Carl, an amazing gentleman that I've met recently, some of the points and views that he had as well, also as a father. But one that kind of struck me and something that I kind of want to talk about, especially in light of all of the things that are going on in the world at the moment, from impeachments, inaugurations, investment, cryptocurrency, just what seems like a massive changing of the guard going on all around us. It made me question the tenets of traditional curriculum and education as we know it. Because also in this lockdown and quarantine, children aren't at school, and children at home are now being homeschooled, or parents and families are having to consider or figure out new ways of keeping their children engaged at home, keeping them in the learning loop, keeping that kind of upward curve, while at the same time not falling behind. Now, obviously, I just kind of took umbrage with this idea of falling behind, because we're the ones who set that standard. So, I mean, who are we falling behind? I know that there are children from other parts of the world who aren't privy to the educational system and structure that we have here in the UK, where I'm making this video. Yet, I would contend that some of these other children from around the world are probably far better equipped for the challenges that the world poses today. And it just made me really just kind of consider the things that are the building blocks of modern education. I just wonder how many of them now are fit for purpose for the future that we're moving toward. Now, I say this, and I kind of flippantly said in a previous video, and I've been saying to quite a few people, that come 2040, 2050, what will having studied English literature or American studies or the history of the Second World War at some middle of the road university do for you with regards to what you can now offer to an ever-changing world, and a world which by now as well, come that time, will be subject to even more automation, even more redundancy of human value to the gross domestic products of nations. And I mean, really, we should be looking at a time where things like universal basic income and regenerative economic systems are now the norm, rather than the what feels like scare stories as they're billed by our current mainstream media today. It has made me think that education really like kind of should be stripped back to basics, and that the things that we owe our children, what I owe my daughter now, kind of even coming back to like, you know, the discussion of this plant, is an understanding of our relationships with the natural environment, an understanding of how our built environment reconciles with that natural environment, and how we can do things to make that relationship less abrasive and more conducive moving forward. I said that I think the education system as we know it now, until you get to at least the master's level, and I think this is a quote from my mum, she said that until you get to the master's level, education as we know it in the UK is about training rather than real education. It is about learning to follow order and learning to follow a prescribed way of being. And it's only once you kind of come to a level of learning where you're able to, in essence, use the information and the knowledge that is available, but using it like to your own direction. I've lost a little bit for words there. I mean, as I'm just kind of like thinking about it, but I just do understand that. I mean, when I think back to my own education, everything was about memory testing. It was a regurgitation, really. Our exams are about how much can you cram, and then how much of that can you spew back out onto a piece of paper. But again, that kind of method of learning is just now no longer fit for purpose. I mean, how can it be in the age of Google, in the age of search engines, which can find that information in like 0.012 of a millisecond, when you're still like scratching your head trying to recall it? Recall is no longer necessary as part of our mental function when we have created the digital solutions. What is necessary is thinking about how we affect our fellow humans. It is about will, and about us having the will to make the change to move to the place that we need to get to. I think it is, nobody could question that we have invented enough stuff now in the world that the solutions to all of the problems that we face could be met if we were to use these technologies that we have created accordingly. But while we still live in a world which is based around a capitalist model, which in essence promotes greed, but yet we're in a race of finite resources, ultimately there can be no fix. And education that pushes children to also join that linear race of how much can I accrue and how much can I hoard, rather than how much can I redistribute and how much can I regenerate, is also like, you know, why we're ultimately as a species on a hiding to nothing. So for me, education kind of has to change. And I think what I talked about and what matters to me, and this is something I want to put on the record because it's what I'm going to be trying to do, my wife and I are going to be trying to do this year, is still moving away from the UK and kind of trying to live a more rural life, a more back to nature, back to basics life, because I truly believe that the next 20 to 30 years, what kind of is seen now as a luxury or seen as a like this approach of stepping out of the system and trying to be off-grid people, to a lot of people within the West is seen as the height of privilege. But I would hasten to remind that before the industrialization of Western civilizations as we've known over the last 300-400 years, that's how everybody lived. That's how humans survived for the majority of the time that we have been Homo sapien. We have survived with this back to nature, respect of our environment, knowing our place within the world and our ecosystem mentality. We haven't just commodified every single thing about this earth to the point of destruction. That was just not how we were. And so I really believe that moving back to that mindset is actually the best thing that we can do, the best thing for education, the best thing to put into young minds. And again, just kind of flipping things on their head. I really want my daughter, and like any other children that we have and other children that are part of this network and this belief, to look at waste, for example, like looking at, like, you know, the mountains of plastic and nappies and tires and things that we have created in this world that so often have only single use, and looking at how can we make them be multi-use. How can we weave them back into a cycle that, like, you know, that never dies, rather than them being buried in landfills only to become problems for somebody else further up the line. I think really ultimately what we all need to learn is to have more of a long-term view and understanding of our place, a long-term understanding of our environment, and a long-term understanding and approach ultimately to our social systems and infrastructures. So I mean, it's been a bit of a blast today. I also had wished that I had made this video earlier in the week, but lockdown has been posing so many different challenges, new ones every single day. But again, all I can do is count my blessings for being alive, being well, having my wife and daughter both alive and well with me, and for us to be able to have open minds and the privilege, I suppose, for sure, of being able to see the future for what it is and want to play an active role in making that future better, not only for ourselves and our children, but for everybody too. So I will end today's, in essence, what felt like quite a brisk monologue about my views on the world and education right here. But thank you again for tuning in. I hope that this has been worthwhile, like listening to, and I really look forward to opening this up more as a conversation, with people being able to feed into the conversation, and I suppose between us all finding the solutions that are required to get to a better world and to the future. So thank you. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and I look forward to seeing you on video 5. Thank you. Bye again from me and Violet.